There comes a moment when your soul gets tired. Not tired in the physical sense, but energetically drained. Tired of chasing, tired of forcing, tired of trying to prove you're worthy of what should already be yours. And that moment, while quiet and invisible to most, marks a shift in your life so deep that nothing remains the same afterward. You stop chasing, and suddenly, everything starts to chase you. It sounds paradoxical, doesn't it? But the deeper truth is this: chasing comes from lack, from the belief that something outside of you holds your value, that you must go after love, recognition, attention, connection, or else it won't come. But when your energy no longer chases, you step into your real power, because now you're no longer searching, you're becoming, and what you become, you attract. There's a frequency shift that happens in this space. You're not cold, you're not indifferent, you're just whole. And people feel that. They can't always explain it, but they feel it. That's why the ones who once ignored you start reaching out. The opportunities you once had to fight for begin appearing without effort. The energy around you softens, aligns, and pulls in what was always meant for you, but only now recognizes where to land. When you were chasing, your energy said, "I don't have this." Now it says, "I already am this." And the universe listens. This isn't magic, it's resonance. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. When you chase, you radiate desperation. Even if your words are confident, even if your smile is perfect, even if your performance is flawless, there's a vibration behind it. And energy never lies. But when you stop chasing, your energy relaxes. You no longer lean forward in conversations. You no longer send that last text. You no longer over-explain your presence. You let silence speak. You let space breathe. You let what's meant to come arrive without control. And that changes everything. Because now, you're not signaling need, you're embodying enough. The most magnetic people are not the loudest. They're the ones who don't need to prove anything. They walk into a room and feel everything without having to say a word. They choose their words with softness. Their presence lingers. Their absence is noticed because their energy no longer chases. It invites. An invitation is power. Feminine energy, especially, thrives in this space. It's receptive. It's radiant. It's spacious. It's not about sitting back and doing nothing. It's about no longer doing everything for the wrong reasons. You don't call him because you're afraid he'll forget. You don't overgive hoping someone will stay. You don't post to be seen. You don't overperform to feel worthy. You simply return to your center. And in that stillness, everything that's right for you begins to come closer. Not because you begged, but because you became magnetic to what matches your inner truth. This is not easy at first, because the world taught you to chase, to hustle, to prove, to strive, to earn love by abandoning yourself. So when you stop chasing, the discomfort will come, the fear, the silence, the waiting. But if you can sit through that, without running, something profound begins to unfold. You realize that the space you used to fill with chasing is actually sacred. It's where you start to remember who you were before the world convinced you that you weren't enough. And the longer you stay there, in that unshaken place, the more life responds. You begin to glow without trying. You begin to attract attention without needing it. You begin to be chosen, not because you are louder or prettier or more impressive, but because your energy says, "I already know who I am." And that kind of knowing is irresistible. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole. This is what happens when your energy no longer chases. You return to your wholeness. You don't chase because you no longer believe you're missing something. You become the embodiment of your worth. And that embodiment draws in people, opportunities, and experiences that are also whole. No more half-loves, no more unclear connections, no more settling for what doesn't feel true. You stop craving what doesn't nourish you. You stop tolerating what depletes you. You stop entertaining what confuses you, because now you see clearly. What's not chasing you back isn't aligned with you. What you had to beg for was never yours. What left when you stopped chasing was already halfway out the door. And that realization, while painful, becomes your liberation. Because now you're not building relationships out of fear. You're allowing them to build around your truth. There's peace in not needing to chase. There's power in being the one who waits. Not out of pride, but out of alignment. You wait, not because you're passive. You wait because your energy is sacred, and not everything deserves access. You've learned that your time is valuable. your presence is powerful, and your heart is not a discount store for people who can't pay attention. So when your energy no longer chases, you become the mirror. You reflect what's real, and anything not rooted in truth won't last in your presence. That's the shift. That's the beginning. That's when everything starts to chase you. Not because you played games, not because you manipulated outcomes, but because your silence became louder than your pursuit, and your wholeness became louder than your fear. Before we continue, if this message stirred something inside you, it's not random. For those ready to go deeper, the JUNG method is waiting. Link is pinned in the first comment. Now, let's return to the energy that no longer chases. Because when you shift your frequency, the world begins to notice, but more importantly, you begin to notice yourself, that you become aware of what you used to accept and no longer can. You recognize how much of your energy was spent trying to earn a seat at the wrong table. You realize that all the chasing never actually brought peace. It only made you forget who you were. Now that your energy no longer chases, there is a different kind of awareness growing inside you. You no longer apologize for your depth. You no longer dilute your emotions. You no longer explain away your needs to make others comfortable. You start protecting your peace the way you used to protect your relationships. You stop trying to make everyone understand you, because you finally understand yourself. And in that space, something powerful takes root. You begin to attract people who don't just like your light but also honor your shadows. People who don't need you to shrink in order to feel big. People who can hold silence with you without fear. People who feel your energy without you having to explain it. This is the result of choosing not to chase. It isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming so full of your own truth that anything misaligned simply falls away. You begin to move differently. You say no without guilt. You say yes without fear. You stop filling voids with distractions. You stop looking for meaning in places that only offered noise. You find joy in solitude. You find peace in presence. You find love in places that don't demand you to sacrifice your dignity to receive it. There is a maturity that forms when you no longer chase. You stop entertaining temporary relief at the cost of long-term clarity. You start thinking beyond the moment. You start choosing what feels right over what feels urgent, and people around you will feel the difference. Some will leave because they only knew how to connect through your chaos. Others will stay because they recognize the strength in your silence. They understand that you are no longer reaching, you are now receiving, and this receiving energy is magnetic. It doesn't come from effort, it comes from trust, from presence, from a heart that no longer seeks proof but lives in truth. When you walk with this energy, everything about your life begins to shift. You don't push anymore. You don't beg anymore. You don't plead with the universe to bring you something. You become the place that arrives. And this shift is spiritual, not in a distant, mystical way, but in the grounded, real, everyday way. That changes how you wake up, how you walk, how you speak to yourself. You don't need to compete. You don't need to compare. You don't need to seek what no longer belongs to your path. You become rooted, and from that rooted place, you bloom. It may not be loud, but it's lasting. It may not be flashy, but it's real. Because when your energy no longer chases, it finally settles into its truth. And that truth speaks louder than any performance ever could. You begin to inspire others, not by what you do, but by who you are. Not by chasing approval, but by modeling peace. You become the reflection others didn't know they needed. And this is not accidental. This is intentional. This is healing. This is alignment. When you stopped chasing, you gave up the illusion of control. And in that surrender, you gained something far more powerful. You gained clarity. You gained space. You gained the ability to see what truly belongs. Now you walk differently through the world. You don't walk in looking for validation. You walk in holding your own energy. You don't need to prove that you belong. You already know that you do. And in this knowing, you change everything. Because people treat you based on how you treat yourself. When you chased, you were signaling that your value is outside of you. Now, by standing still in your worth, you show that it has always been within, and the world responds, not out of obligation, but out of resonance. Because everything starts to chase you when your energy no longer does, not because you became better, but because you became more of yourself. Not because you learned to say the right things, but because you unlearned the belief that you had to say anything at all. That this is your power now, not in how much you do, but in how fully you are. Not in how hard you love, but in how softly you hold yourself. Not in how many people want you, but in how few get access to your peace. Because now, you know, your energy is sacred. Your time is sacred. Your presence is sacred. And the moment you stopped chasing, you made space for all the things that were trying to find you. Now they can, because you're finally still enough to receive them. This is the life you create when you trust your own gravity. When you no longer run toward what was never meant for you. When you stay with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's quiet, even when it's uncertain. Because that quiet is where your real voice lives. That stillness is where your power gathers. That space is where the world finds you. Not because you shouted, not because you chased, but because you finally became the one who no longer needs to. And that changes everything. Asterisk. And what's most beautiful about this transformation is that you didn't force it. You simply stopped running. You stopped chasing things that weren't chasing you. You stopped begging for clarity from people who only offered confusion. You stopped exhausting yourself in places where you were never truly seen. Instead, you chose yourself. And that choice, though quiet, was revolutionary. He didn't scream it from rooftops. He didn't post about it. He just began showing up differently. Less reactive, more grounded, less available to things that used to drain you. He started protecting your nervous system the way you used to protect others' feelings. You started resting in your own presence instead of constantly performing for connection. You started building a home inside yourself that no longer required external validation to feel real. And that's the version of you that changes your reality. Not the one who runs after what she wants, but the one who becomes it. You don't attract love by needing it. You attract love by becoming a space where love feels safe. You don't attract peace by seeking it. You create peace by no longer chasing things that steal it. You don't attract respect by demanding it. You embody respect so fully that others rise to meet it, or quietly step away. This version of you is magnetic not because she's trying to be, but because she's done trying. She is, and that is enough. Now, everything that aligns with that energy begins to appear naturally, without pressure, without confusion, because finally, you're no longer chasing what was never meant to be caught. You are letting it come to you.